My name is Graham Whitfield. I am 41 years old, a high school history teacher living in Cedar Falls, a mid-sized town in rural Pennsylvania. What I am about to tell you happened on a Wednesday evening in late November, the week before Thanksgiving. It was the kind of quiet night where nothing seems like it could possibly go wrong. On November 19th, at exactly 9:17 in the evening, every television channel in the country displayed the same emergency broadcast. It lasted for approximately 4 minutes. When it ended, the world went back to normal, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened, and by the time anyone realized what the broadcast meant, it was already too late for a lot of people. I was grading papers in my living room that night. My wife Monica was upstairs taking a bath. My daughter Lily, 16 years old, was in her room doing homework. The television was playing some cable news program I was barely paying attention to, just background noise while I marked up student essays with my red pen. Then the screen went black. Not static, not a signal loss. Pure, absolute black. And that horrible tone started, the emergency broadcast tone that always made my stomach clench, even when it was just a test. What appeared on the screen after the tone ended was simple. White text on a black background. No header explaining what kind of emergency this was. No government seal. No instructions. Just names. They scrolled slowly, one after another, in simple white letters. First name, last name, nothing else. No locations, no ages, no context. Just an endless list of names moving up the screen at a steady, deliberate pace. I watched, confused at first. I assumed it was some kind of glitch, maybe a technical error that had accidentally broadcast some internal database. I reached for my phone to check if anyone else was seeing this. And that was when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. I recognized some of the names. Not celebrities, not politicians. Regular people, people from my town. I saw Robert Harding, who owned the hardware store on Main Street. I saw Denise Kowalski, who worked at the bank. I saw Father Timothy Walsh from the Catholic Church on Oak Street. I grabbed my phone and pulled up social media. My feed was exploding. Everyone was seeing the same thing. Every channel, every streaming service, even the radio stations according to some posts, though there was obviously no visual component there. Just someone reading the names aloud in a flat, emotionless voice. The broadcast lasted for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. I counted later when I watched recordings that people had posted online. Approximately 230 names in total, scrolling past at that same steady pace. When it ended, the screen flickered once, and then my cable news program came back on as if nothing had happened. The anchors looked confused, shuffling papers, clearly having experienced the same interruption. One of them started to say something about technical difficulties, but the network cut to a commercial break before she could finish. I sat in my living room, phone in hand, trying to process what I had just seen. My wife came downstairs a few minutes later, asking if the power had flickered. She had heard the tone from the bathroom, but had not seen the broadcast. I told her it was nothing, just a test, just some kind of mistake. I did not tell her I had seen our neighbor's name on the list. I woke up the next morning expecting wall-to-wall coverage of the mysterious broadcast. I expected government officials making statements. I expected chaos. Instead, there was almost nothing. A few local news stations mentioned the interruption briefly, chalking it up to a technical glitch in the emergency broadcast system. National news did not cover it at all. The FCC released a single statement saying they were investigating the source of the unauthorized broadcast and that there was no cause for public concern. The recordings that people had posted online were being taken down almost as quickly as they appeared. Copyright claims, terms of service violations, reasons that made no sense but resulted in the same outcome. By Thursday afternoon, I could not find a single copy of the broadcast anywhere. I started to wonder if I had imagined the whole thing, if stress and exhaustion had made me see names that were not there. Then I heard about Robert Harding, the hardware store owner whose name I had seen on the list, had died in his sleep Wednesday night. Heart attack, according to the initial reports. He was 63 years old, a little overweight, the kind of death that was sad but not suspicious. I might not have thought anything of it, except that Robert Harding was the first name I had recognized on the list, and he had died within hours of the broadcast ending. I spent Thursday making phone calls, checking obituaries, scrolling through local news sites. By evening, I had confirmed that at least 4 other people, whose names I recognized from the broadcast, had also died Wednesday night or early Thursday morning. Different causes: heart attack, car accident, fall down the stairs, aneurysm. Nothing that connected them except that they had all been on the list, and they were all dead. I could not let it go. I knew how it sounded. I knew that correlation did not equal causation, that people died every day, that I was probably seeing connections where none existed. But I could not shake the feeling that the broadcast had been something more than a glitch, that the names were not random, that seeing them meant something. I started reaching out to people in town, asking if they had seen the broadcast, if they remembered any of the names. Most people gave me strange looks. Yes, they had seen the interruption, but they had not paid much attention. It was just a list of names, probably some kind of database error. Why was I so interested? A few people remembered names though, enough that I could start building a picture of the full list, at least the portion that included people from Cedar Falls and the surrounding area. I identified 12 local names from the broadcast. By Friday evening, 6 of those people were dead. These were not sick people. These were not elderly people at the end of their lives. Some of them were young and healthy. One of them was a 28-year-old marathon runner who supposedly had a heart attack while jogging Friday morning. I tried going to the police. They listened politely and took down my information, but I could tell they did not believe me. There was no evidence of foul play in any of the deaths. No connection between the victims except that they lived in the same general area. The broadcast had been investigated and dismissed as a technical malfunction. I was on my own. I started trying to find out more about the names I did not recognize. If there was a pattern, if there was some reason these people had been selected, maybe I could understand what was happening. Maybe I could even stop it. But every time I got close to something concrete, the information seemed to slip away. Websites went down. Phone numbers were disconnected. People I contacted stopped responding. It was like something did not want me looking too closely. On Saturday morning, my wife Monica asked me why I had been acting so strangely all week. I had barely slept. I had been distant and distracted. She was worried about me. I almost told her everything, almost showed her the list of names I had been compiling, the death notices I had been tracking. But something stopped me. Maybe I was afraid she would think I was losing my mind. Maybe I was afraid she would believe me. I told her I was just stressed about work, about the upcoming holiday, about nothing in particular. She did not look convinced, but she let it drop. That afternoon, I got a call from an old college friend named Warren Delaney. Warren lived in Ohio now, worked in insurance, the kind of stable, boring life that I sometimes envied. We had not spoken in months. Warren's voice was shaking. He asked me if I had seen the broadcast on Wednesday night. I said yes. Warren asked if I remembered a specific name, a name that had been near the end of the list. I said I was not sure. The names had been scrolling so fast. Why? Warren said he had seen his own name on the list. I felt the floor drop out from under me. I asked Warren what he meant, asked him if he was sure, asked him a dozen questions that he could not answer. Warren said he had been watching the broadcast, bored and confused like everyone else. And then his name had appeared. Warren James Delaney. White letters on a black screen. He had frozen, convinced he was hallucinating, but his wife had seen it too. She had grabbed his arm and asked why his name was on the television. Warren had spent the past 3 days in a state of escalating panic. He had gone to doctors, to priests, to anyone who might be able to help him. No one took him seriously. No one believed that seeing your name on an emergency broadcast meant anything. But Warren had done the same research I had. He knew about the deaths. He knew what happened to the people on the list. He was calling to say goodbye. I spent the next several hours on the phone with Warren, trying to convince him that there had to be an explanation, that the deaths were coincidences, that his name on the list did not mean he was going to die. Even as I said the words, I knew I did not believe them. Warren was calm, calmer than I would have been in his position. He said he had made peace with it. He had spent time with his wife and kids. He had called his parents. He had done everything he needed to do. He just did not want to be alone when it happened. I stayed on the phone. We talked about college, about old friends, about memories that seemed impossibly distant now. We talked about our families, our jobs, our regrets. We talked until Warren's voice started to fade, until he said he was feeling tired, until he said he thought he needed to lie down. The last thing Warren said was thank you. Then the line went silent. I called Warren's name. I called it over and over, waiting for a response that never came. Eventually, the call disconnected on its own, and I was left sitting in my living room, phone in hand, tears streaming down my face. Warren Delaney was found dead Sunday morning by his wife. Heart attack, according to the coroner. He was 42 years old and had passed a complete physical examination just 3 months earlier. I did not tell anyone about the phone call. What would I say? That I had stayed on the line while my friend died, unable to do anything, unable to explain what was happening. I did not sleep Sunday night. I just sat in front of my computer, searching for answers that did not exist, trying to find anyone else who had seen their name on the list and lived to tell about it. I did not find anyone. The following Wednesday, exactly 1 week after the first broadcast, it happened again. I was ready this time. I had been watching television all evening, phone in hand, waiting to see if the pattern would repeat. At exactly 9:17, the screen went black, the tones sounded, and the names began to scroll. Different names this time. A completely new list. I watched with a mixture of horror and fascination, scanning each name as it appeared, trying to memorize as many as I could. I recognized fewer this time. Maybe 3 or 4 local names, people I knew by face if not by acquaintance. But I recognized them enough to know that the list was real, that it was not just random text, that each name belonged to an actual person somewhere in the country. The broadcast lasted exactly as long as the first one, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The same number of names, as far as I could tell. The same steady scroll, the same white text on black background, the same complete lack of explanation. When it ended, the news came back on, and once again the anchors looked confused. Once again they mentioned technical difficulties. Once again the coverage disappeared within hours. But this time, I was not the only one paying attention. Online communities had formed in the week since the first broadcast. People who had seen the list, who had recognized names, who had noticed the deaths that followed. They were sharing information, comparing notes, trying to understand what was happening. I found these communities and started participating. I shared what I knew about the local deaths. I shared the story of Warren Delaney, though I left out the phone call. I read other stories that were just as disturbing, just as inexplicable. The pattern was consistent everywhere. Names appeared on the list. Within 48 hours, those people died. Always from natural causes. Always without warning. Always in ways that could be explained if you did not know what to look for. Someone in the community started calling it the death broadcast. The name stuck. Over the next few weeks, the death broadcast became something of an urban legend. It happened every Wednesday at the same time, always the same format, always followed by the same wave of unexplained deaths. The government continued to deny that anything unusual was occurring. The FCC maintained that the broadcasts were technical glitches, though they could not explain how a glitch could interrupt every channel nationwide at exactly the same moment. News organizations stopped covering it entirely, whether by choice or by pressure from above. But people were paying attention now. Recording devices were set up. Lists were compiled. The names were tracked. I became one of the primary organizers for the Cedar Falls area. I knew most of the people whose names appeared on the local portions of the list. I started reaching out to them after each broadcast, warning them about what might happen, urging them to see doctors, to be careful, to take the threat seriously. It did not help. No matter what precautions people took, no matter how many doctors they saw or how carefully they lived, they still died. A man who checked himself into the hospital the moment he saw his name died in his hospital bed of a stroke. A woman who was terrified of heart attacks died in a car accident. when another driver ran a red light. The deaths were inevitable. The list was not a warning. It was a sentence. The toll this took on me was immense. The sleepless nights, the constant dread, the way I started looking at my wife and daughter differently, wondering if their names would appear someday, wondering how I would tell them, wondering if I could bear to watch them die the way I had watched Warren die. I thought about stopping, about walking away from the investigation, deleting my accounts, pretending none of it was real. But I could not do it. I was in too deep now. I needed to understand. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, I had a terrible feeling that I already knew how this was going to end. It was the 8th broadcast when I saw it. I was watching alone. Monica had gone to bed early and Lily was at a friend's house. I had the television on, phone ready to record even though I knew the recording would probably be taken down by morning. The names started scrolling. I watched them pass, noting the ones I recognized, preparing to reach out to the families the next day. It had become a grim routine by now, a weekly ritual of dread and helplessness. Then I saw it. Graham Whitfield. My name. My full name. White letters on a black screen, scrolling past at the same steady pace as all the others. I stopped breathing. I stared at the screen, waiting for the name to come back, hoping I had misread it, hoping it was someone else with the same name. But I knew, in my gut, in my bones, I knew. The broadcast ended. The news came back on. I sat motionless in my living room, phone still in my hand, trying to process what had just happened. I had 48 hours, maybe less. Every person I had tracked, every death I had documented, had occurred within that window, some within hours of the broadcast, some almost exactly 48 hours later, but always within that range. I thought about Warren, about the phone call, about how calm my friend had been at the end, how he had made peace with what was coming. I did not feel calm. I felt terrified. I felt angry. I felt cheated out of decades I should have had. Time with my wife and daughter, a future that was being stolen from me by something I did not understand. I did not tell Monica that night. I did not know how. I just lay in bed next to her, listening to her breathe, memorizing the sound of it, trying to burn every detail into my memory. In the morning, I started making arrangements. I spent my remaining time trying to do 2 things: say goodbye to the people I loved, and find someone who could continue my work after I was gone. I told Monica and Lily on Thursday morning. I showed them the recordings I had saved, the lists I had compiled, the documentation of every death I had tracked. I showed them my name on the most recent broadcast. Monica cried. Lily screamed at me, accused me of lying, demanded that I see a doctor, that I check myself into the hospital, that I fight back somehow. I told them there was nothing to fight. I had seen what happened to people who tried. The list was not a prediction. It was a certainty. I spent Thursday and Friday with my family. We did not leave the house. We talked about everything and nothing, shared memories, looked at old photographs. I wrote letters to people I would not get a chance to see. My parents, my brother, old friends I had lost touch with over the years. I told Monica about Warren, about the phone call, about staying on the line while my friend died, listening to the silence after his last breath. I told her I was sorry I had not shared it before. I told her I had been trying to protect her from the weight of what I knew. She held my hand and told me she forgave me. She told me she loved me. She told me she would carry on the work, that she would not let my death be meaningless. I did not feel peaceful. I felt like I was being torn apart from the inside. But I tried to stay strong for Monica and Lily. I tried to make our last hours together mean something. On Friday evening, I started feeling tired. Not sick, not in pain, just profoundly exhausted. I knew what it meant. I gathered my family close. I told them I loved them. I told them to be careful, to watch the broadcasts, to never let their names catch them off guard the way mine had caught me. I told them to keep looking for answers. Someone had to understand what was happening. Someone had to find a way to stop it. Then I closed my eyes. This is Monica, Graham's wife. I am finishing this story because he cannot, because someone needs to know the truth. Graham died on Friday night, November 22nd, approximately 51 hours after his name appeared on the broadcast. The official cause of death was cardiac arrest. He was 41 years old and had no history of heart problems. I was holding his hand when it happened. One moment he was there, breathing, warm, alive. The next moment he was gone. There was no struggle, no pain as far as I could tell. He just stopped. Lily was on his other side. She did not let go of him for almost an hour after he passed. I did not make her. I understood. I have spent the past several months continuing Graham's work. I have connected with the online communities he was part of. I have tracked the names, documented the deaths, searched for any pattern that might explain what is happening. I have not found answers, but I have found others like me, people who have lost loved ones to the list, people who are determined to understand. The broadcasts continue every Wednesday. The names keep scrolling. The deaths keep happening. The government still claims it is a technical glitch. The news still refuses to cover it. The recordings still disappear within hours of being posted. Whatever is behind this, it has the power to silence almost everyone who tries to speak out. But not everyone. Not us. I am sharing Graham's story because someone needs to know. The government is not going to help. The news is not going to cover it. The only people who can stop this, if it can be stopped at all, are ordinary people who are willing to pay attention. Watch for the broadcasts. Note the names. Warn anyone you recognize. And check carefully. Look at every name that scrolls past, because you never know when you might see your own. I have been watching the broadcasts every week since Graham died. I have been waiting to see my name or Lily's name appear. So far, we have been lucky, but the list is long and it keeps growing. Every Wednesday, 230 more names. Every week, 230 more deaths. Whatever is behind this is not slowing down. If anything, the deaths seem to be spreading. People in more cities, more countries, more corners of the world. I do not know what will happen if my name appears. I do not know if I will have Graham's courage, his calm, his ability to face the end with grace. I hope I never have to find out. But if I do, I will be ready. I will have said everything I need to say I will have done everything I can to warn others, and I will not be alone. Lily watches with me now. Every Wednesday at 9:17, we sit together in front of the television, holding hands, scanning the names as they scroll past. We do not speak during the broadcast. We just watch and wait and hope. When it ends, we check in with the others in our community. We share what we saw. We mourn the names we recognized, and then we start preparing for the next one. This is our life now. This is everyone's life, whether they know it or not. The broadcasts are real, the deaths are real, and no one is safe. I used to pray that someone would find an answer, that someone would discover who was behind the broadcasts, or what was causing the deaths, or how to stop it. I do not pray for that anymore. Now, I just pray that when my time comes, I will face it the way Graham did, with love for my family, with acceptance of what cannot be changed, with the hope that someone, someday, will finish the work we started. If you are reading this, the work is now yours too. Watch the broadcasts, track the names, find the ones who are marked and give them what comfort you can. And every Wednesday at 9:17, check the list carefully, because the next name could be anyone. It could be someone you love. It could be you.